Today, I'm going to show you how to create a variant of a SAP Fiori Elements application using the feature called Adaptation Project in SAP Web IDE. First, of course, we start in Web IDE. Next, we'll create an adaptation project. Adaptation projects are a new feature as of September of 2018. We'll give it a project name, call it Adapt List Import. Application title. We'll call this Manage Products Variant. I'm calling this a variant because when you do an adaptation project, it creates a variant or an extension project of an existing Fiori Elements application. Any changes we make are only going to apply to the variant and not to the source application. And now it wants us to select a system that contains the source application. This is the name of the system, and this is an on-premise ABAP repository, which is where the source application must reside in this initial release of the product. And we'll put in the name of the application. There it is. And finish. Okay, now our project is created and shows you a working application based on the source application. Any changes we make, again, to this application are only going to be made to the variant and not the source of the application, not the source application. Okay, now let's go ahead and open this up in the SAP UI5 Visual Editor. This editor used to be called the UI Adaptation Editor, and we have changed the name to be a little more overarching because we've added functionality to it and we'll continue to add more functionality in the future. In the past, all it could do was change properties of a Fiori Elements application and move controls around, rename labels, things like that. And now we've added much more functionality. So here we have a preview of our source application, or actually of our new variant application, but it hasn't changed from the source. And we can say, what does it do? Well, it's going to list products that are available, and we have a few different filters that are available through the Smart Filter. And just see how that goes. Let's find all the products that cost less than 100. Okay, excellent. Okay, but say I know that I have a group of users that would like to be able to filter on the ratings or the source supplier of these products. So in the past, I'd have to create my own application, right? Now, in this adaptation project, I am able to modify the smart filter to add a couple of filters. So let's do that. But before we do that, I'm going to disable safe mode. When we're in safe mode, that will just allow me to be able to move sections around and do very simple changes like changing the names of labels, things like that. And I'm going to disable safe mode so that we can do some more extensive changes. Okay, here we are in preview mode. Let's go into edit. Okay, this is our editor. Here you see we have an outline of the view and what controls are in it. We can see changes that have been made, which none have been made yet. We can select items in this visual editor here and see properties of the different controls we select. And so you could make changes to those properties if you like. But what we want to do is we want to add another filter to that smart filter bar. So we are going to create a control configuration, create a new one. We'll call it custom filter. Okay, and what we've got now is a custom filters XML file that's blank, and we need to add some entries. Now, I'm not a developer, and I'm just going to copy and paste some code that our developers were so kind as to provide for today's demo. So copy that, select everything and paste, and you'll see we have a definition here for the supplier filter, definition for the ratings filter, And you'll also notice that there is some I18N binding for the rating control. Okay, now let's go ahead and save that file. Okay. If we were concerned about the localization, we could add keys to the I18N properties file, which is located here. We could make changes to that properties file so that the UI is translated when necessary. Those keys are then loaded and merged with the source application I18N text keys. It is possible also to override an existing key with another text by just mentioning it in the extension's I18N files. Then the I18N files in different languages have to be added to make a real translation. All right, let's go back to our visual editor. And notice that it says, hey, you've made some changes outside the editor. Do you want to refresh to see those? Yes, I do. Okay, so now you can notice that there's a supplier field and there's a rating text field. But if I click on them, they really don't do anything yet. And that's because while we've added the UI, we haven't actually hooked up the code. So let's go ahead and change that so that they are actually functioning UI. And again, we'll right click on the smart filter area and say extend with controller. We're going to create a new controller. We'll call it list report controller extension. And this opens the list controller report, list report controller.js file. And notice it's not an empty file. You can find plenty of documentation on controller extensions in the UI5 documentation. For the purposes of our demo here, I'm going to copy the code I need from a handy dandy file that I have ready to paste into this .js file. Get that code there to highlight and paste over that with my code. Okay, you can add your own methods and controller extensions, which is what this code does. So you can see information about rendering. And now let's go ahead and we'll save this and go back to our editor. And now let's preview and see what's changed, if anything. And you'll notice that it says loading SAP UI5 Visual Editor with controller extension this time. Okay. Aha, now I can click on that and it brings up a list of suppliers to select from. I can select ratings and say go, and this should reply with a list of suppliers, just those two suppliers I selected, and with a rating average of 3. And indeed, it worked. Okay, so this allowed us to extend a Fiori Elements application, which was not possible before. And of course, you can also use the SAP UI5 Visual Editor to make changes to the properties of the controls in the UI, as you could before. Now your application is ready to deploy and assign to whichever roles and users you like. And since it has its own application ID, it has its own tile and does not replace the existing source application. Also, if the source application is updated, those changes will appear in the variant, thus saving you from having to change the code in the variant as well. I hope this was really informative, and if you have any questions, you can find plenty of information on adaptation projects in the Web IDE documentation, and you can find lots of information about the visual editor there as well. Thank you very much.